Recently, there is an interesting video trending on Twitter. A group of Chinese police kicked open the door and broke into a property to investigate a criminal organization. What is the organization? Let's have a guess. 4 options are: number 1, a drug cartel; number 2, a Chinese triad; number 3, a child trafficking ring; number 4, none of the above. I'll give you 3 seconds to guess. 3, 2, 1. The answer is number 4, none of the bad guys mentioned. The actual answer is a cram school or a private tutoring center. Yes, you heard it right. A place where students were trying to study outside of the school is now an illegal place in China. Well, let's have a look at this video, the one I've described at the beginning. So what is happening here? Why is the Chinese government prohibiting private tutoring in China? Don't they want the next generation to be better educated? The reason behind this policy might be a surprise to your normal thinking logic. So trust me, you don't want to miss today's show. Welcome to Beyond the News, I'm Faye. Let's first set the scene. The rumors about Chinese government cracking down on crap schools have been going on for a few months now. Back in March this year, the Chinese president Xi Jinping had shown signs that he will clean up the education industry. He said things like kids shouldn't have too much burden on study and educational institutions should not be aiming for profit. For those who don't understand the mindset of the CCP, what he said sounds nice and with good intention, or he would be just voicing his opinion. But for people who understand how things work in China, Xi was foreshadowing a crackdown to those entrepreneurs who made their fortune through private education. Xi's words sent chills up their spines. 3 months later, on June 1st, 15 educational companies that are providing private tutoring services were fined for a total of 36 million yuan, that is $5.5 million, for violating students' legal rights. And subsequently, the Ministry of Education set up a task team focusing on cracking down. The real big news came on 24th of July. The State Council of the People's Republic of China issued an official notification saying that all current tutoring companies will become non-profit entities, and these companies will not be allowed to offer classes on weekends or public holidays. When this news broke out, the share price for some of the biggest tutoring companies plummeted instantly. Let's take the largest private education provider in China, New Oriental, as an example. Its share price went from $6.4 down to $1.9 per share. Roughly 70% of its assets went down the drain. And this order came from Beijing, so every province and city started to execute this order. Some officials are so eager to show that they are following Beijing's order tightly and took this matter to the extreme. Maybe they're hoping for some promotion. In China's Hebei province, private tutoring is now considered a serious crime, even be regarded as bad as pornography crime. In Guangdong province, it is considered an organized crime. All we just mentioned resulted in the dramatic entry of the video we saw at the beginning. Now, it begs the question, why does the Chinese government, or why the CCP boss Xi Jinping wants to crack down on private tutoring centers? To be honest, we might never know the true motive behind his order, but there are 2 reasons people are speculating. First, and the most important reason in my opinion, is to make sure that the brainwashing for the next generation can be guaranteed. Why would I say that? The excuse of Chinese government used for this crackdown is to reduce students' study load. However, that is absolutely not what they are actually doing. In Shanghai, after the notification sent from the State Council, Shanghai's Ministry of Education published their curriculum plan for the 2021 school year. In this plan, primary school students will no longer need to be tested on English. However, the students will learn a new subject called Xi Jinping's New Era of Socialism with Chinese Characteristics. What a mouthful. Basically, it is Xi's socialism thoughts. This subject will be taught in Year 3, Year 5, Year 8 and Year 10. I don't know about you, but I don't think a Year 3 kid would have any idea about this new era of socialism or what Xi's thought is for this matter. This is just going to be some simple brainwashing stuff about how great Xi Jinping is. I think instead of learning garbage like that, learning English will be a far more practical and useful skill. Therefore, the offloading students' pressure is just a cover-up. What underneath everything is that the government will have to have total control in brainwashing the kids. Remember, in the private tutoring centers, the teachers won't have to follow the official curriculum in brainwashing the kids. They can even inject a bit of Western values to the kids, if the teacher happens to have any. This is dangerous, because the kids would have a mind of their own. In fact, that would be a threat to any of the communist systems. To quote a famous Soviet communist, Vladimir Lenin, "Give me one generation of your children and I will transform your country." The CCP knows as well that if they can tightly control the nation's education system, they can brainwash the people from young into the political idiots. That is very important for the stability they want to maintain in China. Another factor for this private tutoring sector crackdown is to allow parents to have more babies. This may seem like a bizarre reason, but hear me out. China was pretty famous for its own one-child policy, which has been going on for decades. Only in 2015, the CCP started to allow parents to have their second child, and in May this year, allowed them to have a third child. The notorious one-child policy not only created one of the world's worst atrocities, it also created a population crisis in China. Even though China was said to be the world's second largest economy, if you calculate the per capita GDP with its official numbers, China's per capita GDP is only a quarter of Japan's, one-third what Korea has, and just a sixth of the US. That means, on average, Chinese people are not as wealthy as many people from the developed countries. However, China's birth rate is similar to those developed countries. This means, in the long run, China's aging population will be a huge burden on the smaller working population. That is why now the Chinese government is encouraging people to have more babies. You may be wondering, how is the cracking down on private tutoring going to help this problem though? For those people who watched our previous program on Lying Flat might know that many Chinese students attend tutoring centers to get better grades so they can get into better schools. They will go to those centers after school, on the weekends, and during school holidays. So these tutoring schools aren't cheap at all due to the high demands. In 2012, a stat shows that to raise a kid in China, 30% of the total family expenses went to private tutoring costs. You can see how big the private tutoring market is in China. Therefore, by prohibiting private tutoring centers, theoretically, parents would be able to save a huge sum of money and possibly have more money and time to raise another child. So, how will this cracking down drama end up, you may ask? I think CCP's action this time might backfire on themselves and cost parents even more to tutor their kids. Why do I say that? There is an invisible hand principle in economy. It is a metaphor to describe an unseen force in the market, and the market is resulted from the supply and the demand chain. If the demand is there, you can never completely cut off the supply as there is money for people to make. In this current case, parents still want better grades for the kids, which is the demand, and the tutoring center is the supply. And this demand will not go away just because the tutoring centers were cracked down. Therefore, parents might need to go to the black market and pay more to find a tutor, or do the tutoring in a different manner. If the Chinese government is genuinely wanting to solve the problem, they should target the demand, that is the parents who want great schools for their kids. And the root cause of the demand is the limited job opportunities in China. Unless a student graduated from a well-known university, the big company wouldn't even look at his resume. Therefore, in order to get into a good university, he needs to get into a good high school and study really hard for it. To get into a high school, he needs to be in good primary school, so on and so forth. To make things even worse, the number of good universities and good high schools are really limited for this populated country. There is a Chinese saying, too many monks, but not enough kanji to share. The monks being the students in China, the kanji being the good schools and universities in China. If the employment problem isn't resolved, no matter how hard they are cracking down on tutoring centers, it is not solving the problem. But for a communist country, the employment issue is always a fundamental issue that is incurable. So, the issue related to the private tutoring is, of course, incurable. So, speak till now, you have some understanding on this crackdown. But can you really imagine in China the private tutoring centers now as harmful as Tri-As? This is really unbelievable, isn't it? Do you agree with me? Leave me a comment below. Alright, that's all for today. If you like today's program, please give me a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button, turn on the notification bell. Thank you for watching Beyond the News. I'm Faye. I'll see you again very soon.